Welcome to the Vet to Vet podcast. I'm your host, Bill Fitters. Join me as I talk to fellow veterans about their military experiences from Vietnam to Operation Enduring Freedom. This podcast is sponsored by Tugs, talking, understanding, growing, and supporting. Even big ships need a little help sometimes. Feel free to hit the subscribe button below to get our latest Vet to Vet interview. Feel free to like, share, and leave a comment below. And thanks for joining us. Today on the Vet to Vet podcast, we're sitting down with Technical Sergeant Jeff the Wrench Johnson. How are we doing today?
Doing good, Bill.
Good
to see you.
So tell me about your early life prior to joining the military.
Well, I was born in New York State, raised about half of my childhood in Florida, and then went back to New York State and was with my grandparents. My family had a lot of vets. My grandfather was in the Army, my aunt was in the Navy, and my uncle was in the Army. And I was supposed to go in the Marines with one of my buddies, but he decided to move to Pennsylvania.
Oh.
So because he did that, I enlisted into the Air Force. I was on the delayed enlistment from 83, and I went to boot camp, of course, at Lackland in 84, August of 84.
What was boot camp like?
I actually didn't think it was all that bad. You know, we got there in the middle of the night, and you're there, and if you're quiet and just do what they tell you, they don't come and mess with you. But, you know, of course, there's always a couple that just got to push the limits.
Oh, yeah. And you know why they bring you in the middle of the night, don't you?
Well, it takes you off your guard, and it's easier for them to break you down.
That and you don't know how to get out.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no way unless you cry a lot.
Right.
You know, and in fact, we did have one guy that cried all the freaking time, and they just said, "Out of here."
Yeah, because you always get a few of those.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
But I think in basic, their objective is to break down everybody to get away from the individual into the team orientation.
Right.
I know I had my moment.
Yeah, I know. Well, we had a Marine for our drill instructor.
Oh, that's always fun.
Oh, yeah. He was a really big guy, too. Trust me. And we were his last group. He was going to go to Japan after that, and he was actually an aircraft mechanic.
Well, he's a good guy then.
Yeah, can't beat that bad, right?
Not right.
And, you know, of course, the last day they tell you what they did in the service and that, and they actually talk like a human being to you.
They are humans?
Yeah. I think probably one of the worst things for basic for me was, well, one guy, he didn't really get caught, but he had to fess up because we ended up doing KP until he told him that he was the one that was smoking in the day room.
Yeah.
Yep. So
one of them guys.
Yep, one of those guys. And, yeah, in that kitchen, and it was so freaking hot, and I just got sick as a dog, you know, and just kind of gutted it out because I wasn't going to the hospital for that. No way.
Not when you're that close to
No,
graduating.
exactly.
So you graduated from there, and then where'd you go?
From there, because I really didn't. I picked a couple different career fields, and of course they decide which ones they really want to put you in, and it was none of them that I picked.
Right.
So I ended up a munition maintenance specialist, and school for me was in Denver, Colorado.
Oh, that's a hard one to take.
Right. Yeah, it was nice. We went up into the mountains, and you know, it was quite the adventure.
So where'd you go after graduating there?
After I graduated there, of course, I wanted to go to Alaska, and they sent me to an opposite place. I went to Guam for 15 months.
Oh, nice. Nice. That's, that nice wintry weather that Guam has.
Exactly, right, yeah. 90 degrees all year round.
Right.
Yeah, beautiful place. When it rains, you got to be really careful. The roads are real slippery because they're made of coral. So, you know, and coral, when it gets wet, it grows.
Yeah.
So
that's a
when
fun
it does that, it gets slippery. It's just like ice. So over there, I was in outside storage. I basically loaded bombs on trailers and took bombs off of trailers, and because we had what they call revetments, and the bomb dump itself was 700 acres.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was pretty big. So we had a lot of revetments. You know, we'd go and take the bombs that were all rusty and load them on the trailers. They'd take them to vacuum blast and sandblast the bombs, and then they'd repaint them and put them back onto the skids and bring them back out to the revetments, and we'd stack them all back in order and all that. On occasions, I'd work inside storage, which basically was, from the air, you probably really don't notice it because they're just like a mound, and they have grass all over them and that. And we'd go in and count bombs in there and make sure everything was okay.
Now, what size bombs are we talking?
500 pound, 750 pound. They did have a test lot there that we had to take and dispose of. Basically, they took and we put them on a trailer, and then they had to take them down to the beach and actually blew them up down there. And a lot of those were actually leaking minol, which is a form of explosive. It's just like C4 when it sweats, or dynamite when it sweats. It's that stuff, you know. So
Okay.
It's very dangerous to work with. It's unstable, and yeah, kind of scary.
So a
'Cause
smoker like me would not be welcome around there, is what I'm thinking.
back then I was a smoker too, and it didn't really bother me. One of the first things they did when you come to Guam is they take you out to the bomb dump, and they have one revetment that's always full of water, and they'll go and churn it up with the trucks and that, and make it all nice and soupy, and the earth over there is red. It's red clay. So the next thing you know is you're laying in that water. And they all have a good time, because when you get done, it actually turns your skin red.
Oh, Uncle Sam loves you.
Oh yeah, yep. And of course, then their other big thing is they take you to where the bombs are and that, and you know, to show you what you're going to be doing and that. And you got some crazy guy that'll jump off the back of a truck with a crowbar and go out and smack them bombs and see if they can get you to run. So yeah, it was quite the thing.
How long? You were 15 months there?
I was there 15 months. And then when I left there, they called me the master of disaster. That was what it was put on my plaque. We had forklifts. They were big ones. They were all-terrain, four-wheel drive, four-wheel steer. And I managed to break a few of them. But they had to get back with Pettibone, and they were having issues with the booms, cracking and that. So they took a lot of them out of service, and of course, the couple that I broke, they went out of service too. The biggest thing that happened, I think, over in Guam was they had a red flag exercise over there, and brought planes in from all over. The nuke side, which they'll tell you they don't have nukes over there. Their machinery broke, so they couldn't load them on the B-52s. That base, of course, everybody knows they have B-52s, and then they got the recon planes. So they called out to the bomb dump, and I was the one that was volunteered to go. So you probably got 200 officers standing out there, and you have to load this bomb onto the wing of a B-52.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that was quite the thing over there. Yeah, so I was happy to get out of there, because I want to come back to, you know, normal condition weathers like we're used to in the north. You know, it's not fun in Guam when no snow, and you know, Christmas is just not right.
Yeah, right. So where'd you go from Guam?
From Guam, I ended up going to Herbert Field. It's a lot of people will call it Eglin Number 9. It's a special operations base, and there I was put into inside storage. That didn't last very long, probably I'd say less than 6 months. I had already done my upgrade training, so I was qualified to do other things. And an opening came for line delivery, and I took it. And of course, they'll tell you second shift, but second shift runs from 3 o'clock in the afternoon until that last plane comes back, and that could be the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So it was quite interesting. My job was to, we didn't have bombs there. It was all small arms, I guess is what you would call it. But I loaded the gunships, the HH-53s and the C-130 Hercules, every day. There was a lot of times that they would come up in the range up here, and they'd shoot up here, and then they'd fly back down to Florida from there. We used to watch them fly, and they also had a range down in Eglin, and they would you'd see them with a 20 mil shooting the 20 mil,
Nice.
and they'd shoot the 105 rounds too, so you did get to see that stuff. Also, because Eglin had A-10s, we got to watch them fly, because they would fly over our airfield all the time and do dogfights and that. It was pretty neat.
Once you hear that A-10 unload one time,
Oh yeah,
it's rounds. You remember
yeah.
it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and they're definitely afraid of that gun over in Afghanistan. Let
Oh,
me
yeah.
tell you.
You hear that,
yeah.
you know fun's coming.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So we go from Herbert Field to where?
Well, from there, I got caught up in the Graham Rugman, and I ended up getting out about 5 months early. Unfortunately, I tried to re-enlist, and they said no. And they did this to a lot of people because they were trying to do downsizing of the military. I kind of had troubles finding a job. Nobody really cares if you're a vet or anything back then. And it was really difficult to find anything, especially seeing as how I worked with munitions. If I wanted to do that, I'd have to go to Colorado. So I missed the service. I went back into the reserves and was with the 128th. No, I was with the 440th, the reserves up in Milwaukee. And there I was in water and waste. And I went to school for water and waste down in Chanute, in Texas. Did well in the school, and that wasn't a real fantasy. So we had some family things happen, and I ended up going back to New York, and I basically went IRR, inactive reserve, for the rest of my time. 9/11 hit, and of course everybody was fired up about that, and of course I was too. And the first thing that I did was I went back to the reserves. But this time, when I went back to the reserves, because I had such a break in service, I had to go and take the test again.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, so doing that, they basically handed me the book and told me I could do anything I want.
Oh, nice.
They were really pushing at me to go aircraft maintenance, and I was already a heavy mechanic, and I decided not to do that because the schooling was a year long. So I decided to stay with being a heavy mechanic for the reserves, and I grandfathered in to that because I was already a mechanic for Ryder Transportation, and I've been doing that for roughly about 14 years by that point. We really didn't do a whole lot with the reserves, which was unfortunate. It seemed like everything that was going on, they bypassed us and didn't do anything. We would do our 2-week tour. I went to New Jersey, up there at McGuire, and then we went down to Tampa, MacDill, for our 2-week tours. When they decided that they were going to do the BRAC, the base, and of course at that time our governor and our senators wouldn't go to the meeting with the BRAC team to try and save the base. So they BRAC'd it and closed it. It was closed within 2 years. At that point, I was working as a subcontractor for the reserves as a mechanic, and I was just thinking, what am I going to do now? So I decided to look at the guard, um, and they were looking for a mechanic. So I had called over there and asked them about it, and they said, well, for one thing, you would have to be a guardsman, and to be able to put in for the position. I was like, okay. I go, so do you have the number for the recruiter? And I had 3 years in with the reserves, and for a 6-year hitch. And basically, they cut it off at 3 years, and I went for 6 years with the Guard, their National Guard, at the 128th, air refueling. Just so we know. There, I was a heavy mechanic. I'd already been through the books and had my 5 level and was working on the 7 level, and I said, enough of this. I'm not playing around. I got the 7 level done. I turned around and went to NCO school out in California. Port Who Needs Me. Come back and basically was doing my time to be able to put on Master Sergeant because I had already put on Tech Sergeant. Of course, right before we went on we'd have our war games, at Vogue Field. And myself and one of the other guys put on Tech Sergeant the same day.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that was real fun. Really didn't care for them war games so much, If I got PTSD from anything, it would probably be from wearing the mask,
Yeah.
Most of the time. For my position, not only was I a heavy mechanic, I was also a vehicle trainer. I also was a safety person. And in wartime, I would be the one that would take over the whole facility.
Oh, nice.
Over top of the chief and everything. And what I said went.
Nice.
So that's probably where I get the PTSD, because I run back and forth in that and not slow down and just about pass out because I was moving too fast. That was kind of not a good thing.
Right.
The 128 did a lot of tours at different places, and that, unfortunately for us, we were not part of the main body that would go to a lot of different places. So we would come up with a list of places to go for deployment. And we had one that was for the UAE, United Arab Emirates. Basically, you're in the desert. I went there. I did a tour there, and in fact, we were late getting out of there. We had to have our passports re-stamped. Unfortunately, if you don't, they're going to come and arrest you. So I did the tour. Probably it was about 4.5 months there, and I worked second shift as a mechanic, and I was probably the only one there that knew how to fix air conditioning. So it worked out well for them, When I left there, of course, that wasn't so bad. We weren't being attacked or anything there. They basically call that Walt Disney or Disneyland, because you could actually go downtown. You had to have permission and that, and there was a bunch of paperwork to go through. But we went downtown, and of course they're all staring at you, and it's kind of cool in some places. We went to this one motel just to go swimming in that. I think it cost us about $20
Well, ain't bad.
for the day. But that's where a lot of Europeans come to vacation, was in Dubai. So it was kind of neat to see that. Then nothing really happened there. I worked nights. I'd go to the airfield all the time. You got to see the spy planes going up at night and that. And those things are freaking loud, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah.
Until they get up to a certain height, then they shut them off and they just glide.
Yeah, they get up and go.
Right, exactly. And we had to work on the cars that caught those planes, basically because their wings are so long, they have to catch them with a plane or with a car.
Oh.
So we had to make sure that those cars ran good in that, and they were very fast. They were on Pontiac G6.
Nice.
Except they were hopped up. Let me tell you, we had one. They blew an engine up on it, and we replaced the engine in that. And I took that car out. It was pretty fast. Let me tell you.
You got to see what it can do.
Exactly.
That's part of working on it.
Right. So then,
What year are we talking about?
that was in 2008.
Okay.
So I got done with that. I come back just in time to get the snow equipment ready to go for the season. And went through that, and the list came back out again. Except this time it was for Afghanistan. Excuse me.
Not a problem.
So I put in for that, and of course I got it. So from the last deployment to the next one, it was 8 months. Afghanistan was quite a bit different. You flew from Billy Mitchell. We went up to Canada, then we kind of went over to Germany, and then over to Manas, which is actually on the edge of China. So you can see the mountains and that. And at that time, it was still summer, but they still had snow in the mountains. And we were there for 3 days waiting to catch our flight going into Afghanistan.
Are you trying to tell me the military has this hurry up and wait policy?
Yeah. So when you're in Manas, basically they put you in the billet, and you're going to get all your gear to go into country. They put you in this huge tent, and these tents, I'll bet you they hold 300-400 guys. They're huge. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a lot of people in there when we got there, and basically it kind of made you feel like you were back in basic training, the way they were set up.
Yeah.
The racks and that. So, middle of the night, you had a battalion of Army come in, and they took that place over.
I was going to say,
Freaking
there
playing
goes the
with their-
neighborhood.
Yeah, playing with their guns and everything else. It's like, are you guys serious? Come on. We're trying to get some sleep. So then we end up getting on a plane, and you have all your battle rattle. You're probably running 200-pound packs in this plane, and you're shoulder to shoulder with everybody. You can't move once you get in them. We took off, landed in Afghanistan, and we were way out in the field. And guess what? We marched all the way in.
Nice.
And that was probably a good half mile, 125 degrees. And Manas was about 75 degrees.
It's a little bit of a temperature change,
Oh,
you're
quite
saying.
a bit, yes, quite a bit.
Reminder of your Guam days.
Actually, a lot worse, because in Afghanistan, and this is Bagram, it's always windy there, very sandy, so you're getting sand blasted all the time. So you got a hot breeze, and it's 125, you feel like you're in an oven, is basically what you feel like. And you're sweating like crazy, but as soon as you sweat, it disappears.
Oh, yeah.
So
I can imagine that.
yeah. We get in, do all the paperwork and that in process, and then your leaders come and pick you up. So we got our tour of the base, which Bagram, if you don't know, was actually an old Russian base. And when the Russians left there, they left all their equipment. I just happened to be there when the poppies or the plants there were all in bloom and that. It's like, what are these?
They're so pretty.
Yeah, they're so pretty. Yeah. It's like taking a step back in time is what it's like. A lot of old vehicles and that are out in the sand, and you don't go out, you stay up on the pavement. There's so many mines there, it's just ridiculous. So they have people there all the time looking for these mines and then blowing them up and that. We had our tour. Basically, the senior, he really didn't care to talk to me too much. It was me and one other guy from Minnesota that were tech sergeants. And because we were tech sergeants, meant we were going to run the shift. And of course, 2 days later, he finally come up and asked me if that was all right. And I told him that was fine. On our tour, they showed us on 2 other mechanic shops that were just being done, being put up. So, needless to say, there was nothing in them. They were empty shells. And basically, it's a clamshell. You can open the ends up. You can close the ends up. Depending on the weather, you may have to close them because of the sand. Most of the time, we left them open. It kind of got cool at night there, so it wasn't bad. If you kind of stayed inside there, it was pretty warm still. I got asked to populate those 2 mechanic shops, and I work nights, so I come in at 8 o'clock in the morning and work until about 3 o'clock in the morning. So I basically took about a 4-hour break, sleep and come back to work. Yeah.
So much for banker hours.
No, and that was, you didn't get paid the overtime either, right?
That's right. The Air Force doesn't always stay at 5-star hotels.
Exactly. We were not, trust me. The first night we were there, we got mortar attacked. I was like, what the hell are we going to do? So they have you in a hall, and you're just standing there like, okay, whatever. And then when they're done mortaring, they go, okay, you can go back to bed now. So you go back to bed. That was kind of scary, though, because you're looking at the wall and you don't know what the hell's going on. You don't hear nothing, and they're not really telling you anything. So a few days later, they had an insurgent on the base running around with a gun. So we had to play guard at all the maintenance shops and that. And, of course, we're all carrying M16s anyways, most of the time. I probably was the only one that didn't carry a gun all the time, mainly because I attended a lot of meetings with all the officers and the senior to make sure everything was running right. The end commission rate was really bad when we got there. It was about mid-40s, so you didn't have a lot of vehicles running. And it's kind of critical to have them vehicles, especially with the Air Force.
Yeah.
So because of that, they were all the time looking for parts. Trying to get them there is very tough. I worked on that with the senior and started getting the materials we needed to repair these vehicles. We had a mechanic shop up on the flight line, and that was basically for the aircraft loaders and unloaders. And they can't go off of the ramp. They have to stay on the ramp.
Are those the jammers?
No. They're basically, it's got a cab to one side, and you got a whole, it looks like a piece of flight line, and they bring all the pallets up on them. They can roll them forward.
Yep.
And then once you get them up to the plane, they roll them right onto the plane. I had to run those when I was in the 128th. It was quite fun, but you're very nervous about hitting that plane.
Oh, yeah. They cost a little bit of money.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't believe some of the stuff that we loaded. Loaded up a fire truck that was going over to the desert. All kinds of machinery. Just anything you could think of. We put on a plane and it flew. Either C-130, it could have been a C-5, any plane that come in. Even our 135s, we would load some of them with stuff in the back.
Really?
Yes.
They mainly are used for refueling.
Mainly.
Just for anybody who doesn't know that. But, yeah, I've never thought of them being a cargo plane.
Yep.
I guess that's why they're a C-135.
Yep. Yeah, and I'll tell you, next to the C-141, the KC-135s are the smoothest planes.
Oh, yeah.
And they're very old. They're 50 years old.
Yeah, they're kind of built more for, or I should say, resembling a passenger plane, like a commercial airline, where your C-141s, your C-130 are basically a tube
Right.
with seats along the side. The KC-135 can be set up that way as well, but yeah, C-141 and the C-130s are not the most comfortable type
No.
of planes to fly in. C-5 isn't bad.
It's not bad, but
No.
it's kind of weird because if you ever watch a C-5 take off or land, it looks like it's just going to stay in the air and it's floating. And
Yeah.
even taking off, it's like you think it's never going to get up. I mean, because it's such a big plane.
It is. I never got to see while I was in, nor did I get to work on the C-17. That was something
Those are pretty nice too. Let me tell you.
Yeah, I
We,
wish I
that
could have
that
seen
was
them.
what we flew into Afghanistan with.
Really?
And let me tell you, those things can stop on a dime.
Really?
Yes.
You would think being that
Yeah.
big, you know.
Yeah, they're that big, but they have such electronics in them in that, and they can just do it, you know. And that was the plane that was actually supposed to replace the C-130s. But they found out too that the C-130s were a very good plane, and especially in the desert.
Oh yeah, they're good planes all around.
The sand doesn't affect them like it does with a jet, which is funny. When I got there, they had A-10s, and that group was scheduled to go home, and I got tasked to catch the planes coming in with all their equipment for the F-16s coming in. So I already did 20 hours. I had to go find a truck because we only had, for the Air Force side, we only had 2 semis. And one of them was CEs, the other one was munitions.
Okay.
So I got both of them. And then I went to the Army side and got some equipment from them. Good thing they didn't check my license because I didn't have those on there. So we sat out there waiting for that stuff to come in. It finally came in. So by the time we were done, we were up almost 40 hours to catch all that stuff and get their equipment over to where they were plotted.
Now, this is a joint task base.
Oh,
obviously.
yes, it is.
Yeah.
In the airfield where we were, next door to us was Navy, and if we needed anything, we went to them because they could get anything. We had a lot of trouble. Supply was not very friendly about giving out anything unless you did something for them. So just to get Camelbacks, we had to do some landscape work for supply, and then they gave us the Camelbacks, which we really needed because over there it was nothing to drink 30 liters of water in your shift. You constantly had to drink water. The chow halls over there weren't so bad when you got to go. There was a lot of times that I just eat K-Rats.
Yeah.
You know, and because we were so busy that I didn't have time. I would make sure my guys went to eat because I felt that was very important. They needed to keep their strength up to be able to work on all the equipment. We got mortared again. It happened to be one day that I was supposed to be off, and I decided to work, and I think it was probably about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, you know what, I'm taking off. I'm gonna go get a little extra sleep. So we're on the other side of the base, away from civilization, I guess you would call it, and we had to go around the bottom of the airfield, and at the bottom of the airfield was where they had the burn pit. So normally you see one fire, and there was like 4. Couldn't understand why. I was like, that's kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
Get up to the main base, and everybody's freaking out. It's like, what the hell is going on? We've been mortared, and didn't even realize it until we were um, getting up on base, and we seen the planes take off, the F-16s. Just screamed out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh no. I said, okay, well, I got to get back to the shop. And I went to the closest shop, which happened to be the one on the flight line. And of course, when you have something like that go on, they shut everything down. And I just happened to be one of the last ones to be able to get on the flight line before they shut it. The next thing you know, I'm on the horn with the captain, doing roll call, making sure everybody's safe and nothing's going on with everybody, and finding out where everybody's at. So that took the rest of the night. And I worked probably until noon the next day, just making sure everything was good to go and we were all safe. We got through that, and there was another time where we had one of the Patriot missiles go off and went out of there because one of the FOBs was being attacked. That was, of course, Bagram's, or the center point for Afghanistan. That way they could go out in any direction to fight the Taliban or whoever they were fighting at that time. Of course, you never know because they don't wear uniforms.
Right.
It's very, very hard to tell who's who.
Keep talking. I'm going to shut that door.
Okay.
Keep talking. I can hear you.
So then after that, I figured out and got talking with the officers about us being there. And they said, oh, yeah, by the way, there's a price on everybody's head that's military. And also anything that they hit. If they hit the airfield, they get so much money. If they hit the tower, they get so much money. But their main thing was to kill American soldiers. And that itself was pretty high priced. When we got through all that, we had an F-16 crash in the mountains, and we had to send a team up there to collect all the pieces. And we had one guy get lost, and happened to be one of my guys, and we searched that whole base for that guy, and finally found him. He was at church. Needless to say, he probably got yelled at because he was supposed to be in his dorm, in his room, because they wanted the team that was going to go out to be in their room. It was easier then to say, okay, we're leaving, catch the flight out of there and get where they needed to be. And I think they went by helicopter. One thing that I didn't like, and I don't think anybody did, was when the helicopters took off, you knew it was going to be bad.
Yeah.
Whether it was the attack helicopters or whether it was the ones with the cross. When those guys went up, you can get a tear in your eye, especially when they come back. This was in 2009. On Father's Day, they got mortared. It just happened to be when they were doing a final salute for some guys that had gotten killed, and they would take and bring them down the road, and everybody would be standing along the road saluting to give a final farewell. They decided to mortar them, and they did hit a billet and killed a couple Army guys. Also, and we figured that they knew when they were going to do those tributes. So they ended up having to change it to where when they had guys that were going to go back that had died out in the field, they would have it, and it would be on the hush-hush to let everybody know that if they wanted to, they could go up to the airfield to say their final goodbyes. And because we were already on the airfield, it wasn't hard for us. And just to see the guys there, and then they would load the bodies on the planes headed home. And that was really tough.
Oh, I bet. I bet.
It was really tough.
Bad enough, you got to worry about being mortared by saying goodbye to a brother or sister.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, talk about bring panic.
Oh, yeah.
I think after a little bit you start getting hardened to it, and you get to the point where you understand that this could happen at any time, and it usually does. Their main thing of what they like to do with the mortars, and because Bagram is a fishbowl, you have mountains all the way around. They would take their mortars and set them up, and they would kind of aim them to wherever they thought they were going to go, and they would put a piece of ice over top of it, of the mortar. Once the ice melted, the mortar went down into the tube and it fired. And by the time that we would get to where the mortar was, they'd be gone. So that's how they like to play that game. Most of the time, they were not very successful at hitting anything. A few times it was close calls. I was getting ready to leave. I've been there for 3.5 months. And of course, the officers wanted me to stay.
Yeah.
And I told them that I had no problem with that as long as they got permission from my chief. Of course, my chief said no, because, of course, we're getting back at that time of getting equipment ready for winter. So they really needed me back home. So I ended up leaving there, and before I left, I got an achievement medal. And normally they won't give that to anybody that's been there for that short a time, because I was less than 6 months. And they really had to push it hard through the officers, because they really didn't like that, doing that. So I thought that was a really big achievement.
Absolutely.
As far as the other 2 shops, I had to populate them. I had to split all the tools up to where you could run 3 different shops. They gave me 3 weeks to do it in.
Nice.
Yeah, I did it.
Good.
I tore up my back doing it. Never went to the hospital. Basically, I quit driving the semis. I had taught a couple guys how to drive them, and that's what tore my back up, because the roads there are worse than going out into the cornfield and running.
Yeah.
But that's probably one of my most achievements that I've made in the military, and probably one of them that I'm most proud of. It was very tough. I did run 3 shops. I had 32 guys underneath of me.
Nice.
Yes. I think
Quite the achievement.
it was. My senior, he was very happy to have me there because I got things done. And the in-commission rate, when I left, and that's 3.5 months, I had it about 78% of the vehicles were back up. That's quite an achievement.
Oh, yeah.
I also, before I left, I put it in the hands of a staff sergeant, and he was my assistant because he was always with me. And he was the one carrying the gun, so I didn't have to. He was smart. He knew what was going on, and he knew what the goal was and where he was going with it. So I did not have any fear of leaving it in an uproar. The other tech sergeant, he just basically wanted to be a mechanic, and that was it. He didn't want to run anything. So because he did that, I had to run 20-hour days. And then the most I had off was 4 hours.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the whole time.
Leadership costs.
Oh, yeah,
It does.
I got back, and of course my chief was probably, I think he was a little bit jealous because I could turn around and run 3 shops like that. And because a senior had talked to him, and he basically said, "You're not coming and running this shop." But, I think it was jealousy on his part. because that was something that he never did, deployed. He always took the easy ones where, he worked as a vehicle operator or something like that and just did the books. I did the work.
You find that in civilian world too, where you got the individuals that want to do the work, and then you got the individuals that want to take the credit,
Right.
and then you got the individuals that just want to be there.
Exactly.
And I can relate
Right.
to that. I mean,
I liked being there. It was my duty, and I feel honored to be able to do it.
absolutely.
Scared half to death when you get there, because you have no idea what's going to happen or what's going to go on in that until you relax and just do your job, And then if something comes up, you deal with it then.
Right.
The first couple of years after I got back, I did not like 4th of July.
I can understand that.
Get real jumpy and nervous. I finished out my time with the Guard. I did not re-enlist, and mainly because I was so tore up from working on vehicles, all the big Oshkosh and snow blowers and plows, and then of course CE's equipment. We worked on all that too.
So what year was it that you decided not to reenlist, or that you
That
got
would have
out?
been, I got out in October of 2011.
Okay.
So, unfortunately, on my paperwork, it shows I have 20 years and 24 days. I have 6 bad years because I went IRR from
Yeah.
the reserves, and they really wanted me to stay. There was no way that I could pass the PT. Not the shape that I was in.
Yeah.
I had days I couldn't hardly stand. But I always managed to get myself moving and be able to do the work that I needed to do. I left the shop in good order in that. Like I said, I was a safety person there. I had to clean that all up and restart the whole thing. Basically throw everything out and restart it. The safety, they wanted to bring me on board with them, but my chief wouldn't allow it because he needed me as a mechanic, which would have been great if I could have got into safety. I would have stayed in then. But when I got out, I turned around and took a little bit of time off and helped my daughter with her house, and then went and drove truck. I worked for some harvesting outfit down in Kansas, and then I drove truck and for one of the local outfits, and decided to go back as a mechanic because the trucking wasn't paying the bills. Did that for about 2 years, and turned around and blew my shoulder out, and it took 2 years to get that repaired. Finally, the VA got it done for me. From there, I went to school and got my degree, my associate's degree in supply chain management. Then I basically am working for a United Alloy in Janesville. I was a stockroom coordinator, and now I'm a inventory control specialist. So I'm moving up finally.
So now you are part of the Legion, correct?
Yes, I am. I am the commander for the Clinton, Wisconsin post. I've been their post commander now. This is my 3rd year doing that. I'm also the Rock County commander. This is my 1st year doing that, and it's been a very tough year with all the pandemic
Absolutely.
for all the posts, and just trying to keep everybody afloat, all the posts, is tough, and trying to help make them make decisions of what's going to be feasible to for any type of event. And I've had to cancel one for our post due to not being able to have anybody in the buildings,
Yeah.
you just can't do an event. And I've had one other post that couldn't do their events either, and it causes them to struggle. We need to find new ways to be able to get contributions or
Absolutely.
donations from different people or organizations and that. So that's kind of the main goal right now. Our other goal is to try and boost our membership up, and with doing that, we have the Legion Riders, and which I am also a part of the Legion Riders, and of course, so is Bill.
Yeah, we've done a few thousand miles together.
Yep, we have. This year, I parked the bike and I had 9,000 miles on it, and that brought it up to 4,700 miles that we traveled this summer,
Oh yeah.
all over Wisconsin and parts of Illinois, usually for good causes. We are not only for veterans, we're also for the communities too,
Yep.
and to be able to help them. We put a lot of miles on with their events that they had going
That
on.
we have, brother.
Yes, we understand the pandemic and that, but we ride and we are safe while we do it, because we don't want any of us getting sick either.
Right.
So I think we have done well.
I think my thing this year which was a real struggle with all the rides, was the fear of bringing it back to my post with a lot of members being high risk.
Right.
That has been a challenge, but I think we've handled it well. Like you said, we made sure we wore masks. We made sure that we were safe and
Right.
stuff like that. So,
we
knock on wood, we haven't brought
Right.
anything back.
We would stay with our group, and we would all still, even with that, we still kept distance, 6 feet apart or whatever, or made sure we wear our mask. And most of the time, most of us wear gloves or whatever, so if you did give anybody a hug or that, it was leather against leather. So,
Absolutely.
so that wasn't a big deal. As far as our post and that, I made sure that it was set up to where we could have the older guys there. We kept everybody at a distance. That was safe. And at first, it was if they felt they needed to wear a mask, they could. It's to the point now where everybody has to wear a mask, whether or not they don't feel comfortable. They'll still have to.
Yeah, same here. We wear
unfortunately.
masks.
Yeah, I don't like the mask, and I'm sure everybody else don't like it either, especially when you're talking. It's very difficult to do that. And of course, right today we're not wearing a mask. But
If we haven't given each other COVID yet this year, I don't think we have to worry about it.
Wild Bill and myself, we've been together quite a bit.
That we
So
have,
I
brother.
don't feel that we would have any problems.
Right. Well, as you can tell, the party sounds like it's getting started over there.
It does.
They've come in a couple times, and I apologize for that, but that's what happens on a busy day.
Exactly.
But I want to thank you, brother, for your coming in,
Yep.
giving me your time, and telling me your story.
Thank you.
any-
Thank you for having me.
Any parting words to anybody who's thinking about becoming a veteran, or thinking about joining the military, or thinking about joining a Legion, or thinking about joining the American Legion Riders?
As far as youngsters coming into the military, I think that's a good choice to make. It's going to help you grow more than you'll ever know. As far as our veterans, we need to make sure that we're all safe. Make sure you're doing your buddy checks. They say twice a year, but with everything going on right now, it's probably the best time to do it. The suicide rate is very high.
Absolutely.
For our military and also our veterans. So we need to take care of each other. That's what we're here for. And that's one of my commitments, being a commander of the Legion and also a Legion rider. We we like to take care of our own, and that's what we're going to do.
Alrighty, and on that note, we'll call her a day. Thanks again,
Okay,
Rich.
thanks for having me, Bill.
Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.